I ran into the office and froze. My cheeks burned. Papers were on the floor. My laptop flashed red with an error message. My boss stood at my desk. He said, "Your account was deleted. All client files are gone." I grabbed the keyboard like a lifeline. It felt like someone had punched the air from my lungs. I saw his face change from pity to something sharper. I knew exactly who could do this. Miles. My ex. He had the access. He had the key card. He had sworn to help with my startup website, and then left. I remembered his laugh when he said he loved me. He loved control more. Tears blurred the screen. The emails I had written at 3 a.m, the design files, the pitch deck gone. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You should have listened." My hands shook enough to drop the phone. People in the office whispered. Someone asked if I was okay. I lied. Inside, I felt burned and small. This was not just data lost. This was my work, my heart, my future. I knew Miles had sabotaged me. My throat tightened with a new resolve. I would not disappear. I walked out of the office while my boss tried to stop me. Outside, the city was loud, but inside I heard only one thought: find Miles. I found Miles' apartment number on an old note. My pulse hit my throat. I waited downstairs in my car, fingers tight on the steering wheel. I watched the building like a hawk. The sun dropped. He came out with a backpack and a coffee. No idea his shadow followed. He smiled at someone on the sidewalk. The smile was for show. He still had the same crooked grin that used to make me forgive him too quickly. My hands trembled as I walked after him. I told myself I only wanted answers. I wanted to tell him what he did. I wanted him to feel that loss. He turned down a side street and bumped into someone who dropped papers. I helped pick them up. He stared at me like I had walked into a bad dream. "Taylor!" His voice was fake soft. I felt my anger rise like a wave. I remembered his voice on the message the night he left. "You'll see." He tried to charm me. He asked why I looked upset. I said nothing. My chest felt full of stone. I asked, "Why did you delete my work?" He laughed it off, said he didn't even know how to do that. But his eyes slid away. A flash of something guilty crossed his face. He called me crazy and walked into the subway. I watched him go and made a decision. I would not let him get away with lying. I took a picture of him and sent it to my friend Mara. "Keep this," I wrote. "I'm starting a plan." Mara met me at a tiny cafe the next morning with 2 coffees and a serious face. She had been my support since the first week of the startup. "You look like you haven't slept," she said. I told her everything. Late nights, Miles helping them leaving, the message, the deleted files. Mara's fingers drummed on the table. "Did you call IT?" she asked. I nodded. They say it came from an internal access card tied to Miles' login. Mara's eyes went hard. "That's sabotage." She slid a legal pad across the table. "We need proof." I felt like a detective in a bad movie, and I hated that I had to become one. Mara suggested we check the security footage from the night the files were erased. I felt my stomach drop. If Miles knew, maybe he had already deleted those logs. We agreed to go to the building's security office under the pretense of fixing my account. My hands trembled with adrenaline and fear. I wrote a list of what to say. I had to look calm. I had to be believable. As we left the cafe, my phone buzzed. It was a bank alert. My business account had a withdrawal. Not small. A figure big enough to make me choke. My breath stopped. Whoever wanted me gone was not finished. We walked into the security office pretending to be IT auditors. The guard eyed our badges and asked questions. My stomach swirled. Mara talked fast and smoothly. She distracted him while I checked the monitors. My heart thudded. The footage from the night the files went missing was timestamped. My hands hovered over the keyboard like I could reach through the screen. Then I saw him. Miles. He went through the door with his key card. He sat at my desk and typed for a long time. He smiled like he owned the place. Then he walked out, holding a flash drive. My breath left my body. Mara was whispering beside me. "This is it." We copied the clip onto my phone. I watched the replay until my eyes burned. Miles had also stopped by the security room and spoken to the guard that week. The guard's badge number was scribbled on a receipt in my glove box. I felt a hot idea grow inside me. If we took this to the boss, they might fire Miles. But I wanted more than his job. I wanted my life back. I wanted him to admit it in front of everyone. As we stepped out, my phone chimed. An email preview popped up. Stop digging, or you'll lose more than files. The words were thin and cold. Mara looked at me. Now it's a game, she said. My jaw set. Then let's play. I set up an account on a secure cloud and started to rebuild what I could. Late nights with coffee and hope became my routine. Mara helped me contact clients and explain the breach. Some were kind. Some left. Each lost contract felt like another small death. I used backups from old emails and notes I had scribbled in notebooks. It was slow, but it was mine. Meanwhile, Miles sent Kurt messages that tried to sound casual. We need to talk, he'd write. Can we meet? I ignored him. He showed up at my favorite coffee shop once, and I left before he could speak. Those attempts felt like guard dogs sniffing my life. Then came a strange twist. A former client sent a link to an online article praising the way our product had recoded itself into a copy by someone else. The link led to a tech blog that used my designs and called them borrowed ideas. My stomach sank. Someone was selling my work under another name. I traced parts of the code to an account that had Miles' old email in the metadata. Not proof, but a trail. I felt the noose tighten. That night my phone rang. It was Miles' voice, soft, pleading. Taylor, it wasn't supposed to go this far. I put the phone down without answering. The silence felt heavy and full of warning. I decided to confront the person selling my designs. The seller used a handle that showed up in a small co-working space downtown. Mara and I planned to go during a busy hour. We wanted witnesses. I rehearsed what I'd say until the words felt numb. When we arrived, the place buzzed with keyboards and low music. The seller was a young woman with short hair and tired eyes. Her name was Anna. She looked up when I spoke. I showed her the screenshots and the emails. At first she denied everything. Her voice trembled. Then she confessed she had been hired by someone to rebrand a set of code. She showed us payments from a private account. One transfer had a note. For Taylor's files. My hands trembled as I scrolled. The bank account linked to the transfer matched the account that had withdrawn from my business. It pointed back to Miles. Anna stared at me and whispered, I thought it was clear to use. She looked frightened, not cruel. I felt a new emotion cut through my anger, betrayal from others I had never met. I left the co-working space with a folder of proof and a plan forming like a slow map in my head. Back in the car, I saw a text from an unknown number, stop now. Or next time it's not just work. My breath hitched. This was escalating. I realized Miles was cornered, and cornered men can be dangerous. I took the proof to HR and the legal team. They listened in a small, cold room with blinds. I handed over the footage, the bank transfers, and Anna's statement. The lawyer, an older woman with kind eyes, said they could put a hold on Miles' access and file a civil suit. My hope flickered. Then the lawyer asked if I wanted to press criminal charges. The idea felt heavy. Mara squeezed my hand. We need to be careful, she whispered. The lawyer warned that going legal could draw attention and make Miles desperate. I felt both fear and a strange relief. I wanted him punished, but I also feared what he might do. We agreed to a temporary restraining order and to pause public accusations until we had airtight proof. As part of the plan, the lawyer scheduled a meeting with the bank to trace the withdrawals. That night I went home and tried to sleep. My inbox glowed with messages, some supportive, some cruel. One message stood out, a photo of my building taken from a distance. My stomach knotted. Someone was watching me. I changed the locks and had a friend stay over. I felt safer and trapped at the same time. The next morning, a package arrived at my door, a single printed page of my old design crossed out in a note in bold letters. Let go. My hands were ice cold. I folded the paper and put it in my pocket like a small blade. I would not let him decide for me. The bank called and asked me to come in. The investigator was calm but blunt. He showed me a spreadsheet of transfers that linked Miles' credit card and accounts to the payments to Anna. The numbers matched the withdrawal from my account. My chest felt like it had been punched. The investigator told me they could freeze the account and request records, but they needed a statement from me about the pattern of harassment. I signed papers with shaky hands. It felt real and dangerous. As I left the bank, my phone filled with missed calls. Unknown numbers, blocked numbers, Miles? I avoided answering. I met Mara at a park to breathe. We watched children run with sticky ice cream. Seeing their small joy made me ache and want normal. Mara said, "You should make this public after the freeze. People will rally." I thought of the viral pitch, the way attention could ruin someone or save you. I hesitated. The investigator had warned me that public exposure could hurt my business more. I looked at the trees and felt a different idea bloom. Let him beg. Make him admit he was wrong. Make him ask for forgiveness in front of everyone. Then I felt foolish. Was I thinking about punishment or performance? My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Meet me tonight. One last chance to stop. I looked at Mara. He's playing me, I said. She nodded. Then don't go alone. I thought of how little I had left to lose, and the decision felt heavy as the night. I went to the arranged meeting with Mara and Anna as backup. The place was a quiet diner that smelled like fried food and old coffee. Miles sat in the corner like a storm waiting to break. He looked tired and worn, a different version of himself. He spoke first, voice low. "Taylor, I'm sorry," he said. My stomach twisted. He said he had been jealous of my success and had convinced himself I was unfaithful. His voice trembled with something close to shame. He admitted the deletion, the payments, everything. For a moment, I felt the old ache of wanting to forgive. But then he said, "I was trying to protect you from the pressure." I laughed, an ugly small laugh. Mara's jaw tightened. Anna watched quietly. Miles reached across the table and tried to take my hand. I pulled mine back. "Why?" I asked. "Why would you ruin me?" He said he had felt invisible, like I had become work and not a person. "I thought if I made you hit rock bottom, you'd come back," he said. His eyes were raw. I felt a small, cold fury. "You don't get to decide my life for me," I said. He looked like someone pleading for a life jacket. Then the diner door chimed and a man walked in, one of my former clients who had left and whose business had been ruined because of the files. He sat down at a nearby table and stared. He said loudly, "I want my money back." "And you," he pointed at Miles, "you stole my trust." The diner went quiet. Miles' face shifted from regret to panic. The client pressed charges on the spot. Miles' phone buzzed nonstop. He saw the bank investigator heading through the door. He stood, hands shaking, and ran out. I watched him go and felt something break and something else harden. This was not over. After Miles ran, the police came to take statements. The client who had accused Miles gave a clear account. The officer told me Miles was now a suspect in both theft and fraud. I felt shock, a relief tangled with dread. The legal team advised me to prepare for a long fight. Criminal courts are slow. The news got a whisper of the story. Someone posted in a forum about data breaches with my startup name, and an anonymous user claimed the saboteur was someone from inside. The comments were messy. Some blamed me. Some said people should pay. I spent the night rereading Miles' confession in my head. Part of me wanted him punished so badly I could taste it, but at the same time, I felt a strange pity. He had broken me and himself. I kept thinking about his voice in the diner, soft and pleading. The lawyer told me not to post anything online. She said silence would help the case. Silence felt like a weapon I wasn't used to holding. Night after night, I rebuilt a few more lines of code, small wins like stitches. Then a twist. My landlord called to say someone had left a note taped to my door that said, "Play fair, or we tell what you did before Miles." My breath stopped. I had done nothing wrong except fight back. Someone else knew things about my past I had never told anyone. I folded the note and felt the hairs on my neck rise. Secrets were spreading. The note on my door made me remember a messy chapter from college. A roommate who had stolen a scholarship letter and claimed credit. I had exposed her then, and it had hurt her future. But that was years ago, before my startup, before Miles. Has someone dug that up? I worried the blackmailer wanted to pull me down by any means. Mara said, "We need to find who taped the note." CCTV. The building had cameras, and the guard agreed to check footage. There, at midnight, a figure took a photo of my door, ignored the camera, and walked away. The face blurred, but the jacket was distinct. An old jacket that belonged to my ex-roommate's brother, who used to work with Miles. My heart dropped. This tangled into something bigger. If Miles had friends who wanted to bury both of us, then the fight was not just personal revenge. It was team sabotage. I started to feel hunted. The bank froze the large account, but smaller accounts kept moving. Someone had planned layers. Then a text came with a selfie. Miles, looking disheveled, hands cuffed in front of a police car. The caption read, "Good." I felt a cold flash of victory that tasted empty. That night, a knock on my door. A courier with a small envelope. Inside was an old photo of me and a date scrawled on the back, my college graduation. Someone knew where I had been happy. The paper had a message. Tell your story before we tell ours. I realized then this was less about money and more about control. I would need allies I could trust. I invited my sister, Lena, into my life in a way I hadn't in months. Lena had a quiet strength and worked in PR. I needed help telling my side without giving away legal strategy. She came with plans and soothing words. She said, "We can shape the narrative without flaming the fire." Together we wrote a short, honest statement to send to trusted clients, explaining the sabotage in our steps. Lena also suggested we set up a small fundraiser to keep the business afloat during the legal freeze. Her calm made my chest loosen. For the first time in weeks, I felt a plan that included more than legal fights, community and transparency. We launched the message to a select few and asked for support. Responses trickled in, some small, some generous. People wrote things like, "We believe in you." That warmth felt like sunlight after rain. But in the middle of this, someone leaked a private photo of me and Miles at a concert, smiling in happier times. The photo had a comment, "You fell for the wrong man." It went viral in a mean way. I felt exposed and stupid. Lena put a hand on my shoulder. "Let them see the truth, not the background noise," she said. I nodded. Then I saw a new message from the investigator. "Found something. Meet me." My heart jumped. He said he had traced a wire transfer pattern that linked a shell company to a name, Miles' estranged business partner, Nolan. That name meant trouble. Nolan had a reputation for cleaning up messy disasters. If he was involved, this would be bigger than I thought. Nolan's name felt like frost across my skin. He had been in headlines for shady buyouts and quiet settlements. The investigator warned me to be careful. Mara and I decided to dig into Nolan's public history. He had been linked to several startups that had suddenly folded, with assets moved to anonymous accounts. The pattern mirrored what happened to me. My anger turned into a different fuel, strategy. I made a list of the startups and reached out to their founders. Some were small, fearful, and helpful. One founder, Jamie, met me in a library and cried when she told her story. "We thought Miles was the only one," she said. Then we found a pattern of money siphoned to Nolan's shell. Jamie handed me a folder of documents and said she had been afraid to speak up. With each meeting, the web widened. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about exposing a network built on breaking people's dreams. We pooled our stories and found overlapping bank accounts and a single lawyer who had signed off on transfers. That lawyer had been recommended to Miles once. My stomach twisted. If we could show the network, we could show intent. But exposing a network like that invited retaliation. As I left Jamie's house, my phone beeped. A voicemail from an unknown number with heavy breathing and a click. No words. My hands were cold. The threats had become personal and silent. I had to decide whether I would run or stand. We decided to stand. The group of founders who had been hurt formed a small alliance. We called it the Collective. It was messy and brave. We shared notes, bank records, and a simple idea: transparency could protect us. Lena organized a quiet press meeting with a reporter she trusted. The report wouldn't go public until the accounts were frozen and arrests made. I felt the plan like a rope pulling me forward. We built a timeline showing transfers, meetings, and the links from Miles to Nolan and to the shell companies. The evidence was enough to make some heads turn, but not enough to seal the case. Then a twist came. Miles sent me a video. In it, he sat under a streetlight, voice raw. He begged for forgiveness and admitted everything. But something in his eyes scared me. He said, "I did it because I thought you'd leave me for my ambition. I thought hurting your career would make you stay." The video ended with him saying, "I want to fix it." I watched it twice. It was admission, but it was also bait. The lawyer said the video could help the case, but it also might make Miles a target. That night I found a note under my windshield wiper. "Careful. He has friends. Someone had placed a small pebble in my mailbox. It felt like a threat, not a warning. The collective wanted to go public. I felt the pressure and the danger. I had to choose how to use Miles' video, as proof or as a way to force him to beg in public. I picked a course and felt my hands tremble. We used the video as an official exhibit and gave it to the investigator. The evidence added a new dimension to the case. The investigator moved faster than before. Subpoenas went out. Miles was called in for questioning. For the first time, I saw movement toward justice. That seemed like a relief, but there was no celebration. While the subpoenas were served, my inbox filled with threats again. Anonymous accounts tweeted lies about me. Someone tried to bribe Jamie to stay quiet. Nolan's network was starting a slow counterattack. I felt like a magnet for shadowy retaliation. Then, a surprising moment, a former friend of Miles reached out. Ava, someone I'd met once at a party. She said she had been close to Nolan's team and wanted out. She offered to meet in person at a park. Her face was tired, and she looked like someone carrying too much. She confessed she had helped with transfers, not knowing the full details. Her voice shook as she said she regretted it. She gave us a USB with documents showing how the shell company moved money and the names of the lawyers who helped. It was a risky move for her, and I felt gratitude and dread. That night, the investigator called and told me they had enough for an arrest warrant for Nolan on conspiracy and fraud charges. The news should have felt like victory. Instead, I felt hollow. Justice was moving, but the cost had been high. My thoughts kept sliding back to Miles' plea. Would his begging be relief or another trap? Nolan was arrested in a quiet raid at dawn. I watched the news while holding a mug that had gone cold. The footage showed officers leading a somber man into a squad car. The web we had found began to unravel in public. The collective breathed a cautious sigh. People started to talk differently about the case. Donations to my startup increased. Some clients came back. It felt like the tide was turning. But the victory had teeth. Nolan's arrest pushed his cronies into desperation. Someone leaked a private recording of a conversation I had with Miles months earlier, personal, messy, and edited to sound like I admitted to illegal actions. The edited clip spread fast. It was cruel and precise. I felt my stomach drop into a pit. My chest knotted. The lawyer said it was defamation and we could sue, but defamation suits take time. For now, public opinion swirled like a storm. I had to fight on two fronts, the legal case and the court of public perception. Lena wrote a public statement and set up interviews to explain context. I agreed to one live interview. It was terrifying, but it felt necessary. The night before the interview, my phone rang. It was Miles. "Please," he said, voice raw. "Come to court. I need to say sorry in front of everyone." I looked at Lena and Mara. They both nodded. Tomorrow would decide something, not the legal outcome, but the moment where he might finally face what he had done. The court day felt like being inside a drum. My stomach kept trying to jump out of my throat. The courtroom smelled like polished wood and old paper. I sat in the gallery while Nolan's hearing moved slowly, a careful machine. Miles was called in as a witness. He walked in with hair too long and eyes that had lost sleep. When he saw me, his face broke in a way that made the room hush. He took the stand. The prosecutor asked him calm questions. He admitted to the sabotage and to paying people to remove my files. He answered honestly in a way that left no space to twist words. Then the twist. Miles began to cry in the courtroom. The judge asked if he was okay. His voice cracked as he said he wanted to apologize to me in front of everyone. I felt a flood of conflicting emotions. Relief, disgust, hope. Miles told the court I had been the best part of his life and that he had been jealous. He described nights of panic and the small bitter decisions that led to big harm. The jury listened. I heard his admission like cold rain. After he spoke, a reporter shouted a question about whether I would forgive him. I looked at the faces in the gallery, friends, clients, reporters, and then at Miles. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. My heart beat in my ears. I had a choice to make in front of everyone, accept his apology publicly, or stay firm and let the law handle this. When the judge recessed, reporters crowded the courthouse steps. Cameras flashed like insects. My phone filled with messages, some sympathetic, some cruel. I found Miles outside, flanked by no one. He moved toward me slowly. "Taylor," he said, voice small. The urge to slap him wanted to rise like a wave. He asked again for forgiveness. I felt every moment of pain pile inside me. I thought of the nights I had spent undoing what he had destroyed. I thought of the clients who lost livelihoods because of his choices. I thought of the note that threatened to expose my past. But I also saw the man who had once told me he loved me. The crowd swelled, cameras turning. I realized that whatever I did now would shape not only my life but the story people would tell. I took a breath and spoke with a voice that my anger and calm shared. "You broke my life," I said. "You took my work and my trust. You hurt people. I can hear you say sorry, but words aren't enough." He started to cry again. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I felt the reporter's pen scrape paper. "If you want to make things right, help undo it. Help tell the truth. Help fix what you broke." His face crumpled. "I will," he said. Then he asked, "Forgive me?" The question was small and desperate. I thought of justice and of mercy. I chose my answer carefully. I told him forgiveness wasn't something I could give quickly. It was earned. He had to face consequences and help repair the damage. He nodded, like a man finally meeting the weight of his actions. The next weeks were a blur of court dates, interviews, and rebuilding. Miles cooperated. He handed assets back and helped trace transactions. He appeared in hearings and gave honest testimony that hurt him in the way truth can hurt. The collective kept pushing. Clients recovered some funds. Anna, Jamie, and others gave statements that strengthened the case. Slowly, the stolen assets returned to a few accounts. But restitution was small compared to the damage. I took small wins, new clients who believed in me, a feature in a respected tech magazine, a new developer who brought energy. Miles started community service, and in public statements he asked forgiveness again and again. Some nights, he texted me to say how ashamed he was. I mostly ignored the messages beyond one short reply. "Help fix it. Actions matter." The warning note stopped. The threats faded. Yet some nights I woke with my heart pounding, haunted by the smell of burned files and the sound of the diner that day. A final twist came in the form of a lawsuit filed by Nolan's remaining associates, trying to shift blame to me. I looked at the papers and felt tired. The fight had more chapters. I breathed and started a new plan, clearer documentation, better backups, and a firewall that felt like armor. I started teaching workshops on digital safety for small startups. People showed up hungry to learn from someone who had been burned. I told the story carefully, what to protect, how to document, and why trust must be earned. The classrooms filled with faces that leaned forward. There was power in sharing scars and lessons. Spending time helping others brought me a quiet kind of healing. Miles attended one session as a volunteer, working the sign-in table. He kept his head down. No dramatic gestures, just quiet work. I watched him from the front row. He looked smaller, calmer. People thanked him for his help in organizing materials without knowing his past. It felt strange to see him contributing. One day, after a workshop, a woman approached me with tears in her eyes. She said, "You saved my idea." Her gratitude dug a bright place inside me. I thought of how far we had come. But life kept testing me. A tricky journalist published an article questioning whether my fight had been self-promotion. The article stirred a small storm. I had to choose whether to rebut publicly or let the work speak. Lena said, "Keep building. Let the record show." I listened. Then, unexpectedly, Miles left a note on my desk, an apology letter more careful and honest than anything he had said before. It was private and unshowy. I read it once, folded it, and put it away. I was not sure if forgiveness lived there, but I felt the weight of an ending and the seed of something new. Months passed. The court case wound down. Nolan faced charges, and many of his associates pleaded guilty. Miles received a sentence that included restitution and community service. It wasn't what I wanted for revenge, but it was justice measured by law. He reached out to say he would follow every requirement and wanted to stay out of my life unless needed. I told him to do the work and step back. Life outside the case felt both empty and full of possibility. My startup slowly regained footing. I hired careful people and built a culture around ownership and openness. The collective formed an official nonprofit to support abused founders. I felt proud in a way that wasn't about being right, but about building something stronger from broken pieces. Then a last twist arrived. At a speaking event, a woman approached me and handed me an envelope. Inside was a note from a child I had taught in an after-school program years ago. She had grown up and started a small business. She wrote about how my story had inspired her. The letter made me cry with a clean kind of joy. I thought about what I had done, turned my hurt into help. Miles' begging had pushed me to action. The person who had sabotaged me had also forced me to build something more careful and honest. The memory made me breathless. I kept the letter in my wallet like a compass. Life moved forward, stitched with small routines and quiet victories. I launched a new product with a team I trusted. The first sale made me jump out of my chair like a child. The company that once nearly collapsed breathed again. I found joy in late-night brainstorming and in laughter at dinner with friends. Miles kept his distance, stuck to his sentence, and occasionally sent updates about the steps he was taking. He never begged again. That absence felt right. One evening, Mara and I walked the river and watched the city lights. We talked about how angry we had been, how scared, and how we had found our way. I felt grateful for the people who had stood by me. Then a twist came. I got a call from the police. They had found evidence that someone had planted the first threatening note on my door to scare me into silence. The handwriting had matched an old business associate of Nolan's who had tried to stop me from speaking. The case reopened with new leads. I felt a complicated pulse, relief that the truth kept coming, and sorrow for the small animals caught in the trap. Justice had not been perfect, but it had kept moving. I watched the city reflect on the water and thought of Miles pleading and how it had pushed me to be brave. I kept the letter from the child with me as I stepped on stage for a keynote. The hall filled with people looking for guidance, funding, and courage. I told my story plainly, no melodrama, just fact and feeling. I spoke about sabotage, betrayal, and rebuilding. When I finished, the room rose and applauded. People came up to thank me, to say their own stories. It felt like completing a circle. Among the crowd, I spotted Miles near the exit, watching from a distance. He looked smaller and more anonymous. He clutched a folded piece of paper, maybe a note, maybe a plan. He caught my eye and nodded. I nodded back, a gesture that held no forgiveness and no revenge, only recognition that we had both been hurt and changed. Later that night, I discovered an anonymous donation to the collective, enough to fund a year of support for founders. The donor had left a note, for repair. I didn't know who sent it, but it felt like a quiet blessing. I thought about how the battle had started with burned files and ended with rebuilding lives. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was honest. Months turned into a year. The nonprofit grew and helped a dozen founders recover from sabotage. I taught classes, sat on panels, and slept better. The scars remained, but they were softer now. I bumped into Miles once, in a grocery store aisle, both reaching for the same loaf of bread. We laughed awkwardly and didn't speak. The encounter felt like a small piece. My life had room for new things. A weekend hiking trip, a surprise birthday for Mara, and dinners with Lena. The company celebrated its one-year relaunch. I stood at the event, looking at the faces who had stayed. I remember the first moment when my laptop flashed red and felt the cold echo of that panic. The path from that instant to this evening was long and carved by many hands, some helpful, some harmful. I thought of the justice that moved slowly and the people who begged for forgiveness, and those who quietly fixed what they had broken. I thought of the child's letter and the anonymous donor. The story had wounds but also repair. I felt a soft certainty. I had walked through fire and come out alive. On the anniversary of the sabotage, I cleaned out the last damaged files from an old backup drive. I sat in my kitchen, sunlight making a pattern on the table. My phone buzzed with messages celebrating the nonprofit's first year. I smiled, then saw a final message from Miles. I meant every apology. I opened it, read, and typed a short reply. Do the work. Help others. Then move on. He answered, I will. I put the phone down. The air felt still and honest. I thought about how he had begged and how I had set boundaries. I thought of the people who had stepped in when I couldn't walk. My life was not the same as before, but it was realer. I powered down the old drive and listened to the hum of the city beyond my window. The hurt would always be part of my story, but it no longer ruled me. I had a company, a nonprofit, friends, and a future I had built myself. As the sun set, I picked up the thick envelope containing the court papers and the final restitution receipt. I put them in a drawer as a record more than a weight. Then I walked outside, breathed the air, and smiled in a small, certain way. I was still Taylor, scarred, stronger and steady. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and tap the bell to get notified the moment we drop a new story, and don't forget to like the video to help others find it.